It is my duty, however, for I am sure you would not wish me not to state the facts as I see them to you. It is my duty to place before you certain facts about the present position in Europe. From Stettin in the Baltic to Trieste in the Adriatic, an iron curtain has descended across the continent.
What made you want to join the military?
I wanted to join them first, but I failed the test. But a month later, I got drafted at 18. They were drafting back that then. So I got drafted at 18. I went to service, went to Vietnam, went to service the Army. I wanted to go to, Germany. But they wanted to send me to Vietnam.
How did Vietnam change your life?
Treat me alright. I used to run the mess hall truck, pick up KP, bring them in for cleaning kitchens and stuff like that. I loved it. I loved it. It was better. It wasn't bad. It make a man of you.
How did Vietnam change your family's life?
It didn't have nothing changed my life. The family life, just glad we made it back. Yeah.
When you came home from Vietnam, how were you treated?
Treated all right. But you just ain't with no job like they say you're going to get done.
Taping. I went to Vietnam because I wanted to find out for myself what it was like. I heard the pros, I heard the cons, and even in 1967, 66, 67, and 68, it was rather a heated discussion among young people, mostly in college at the time. There wasn't much discussion or critical thinking in high school at the time. But in college there were a number of people who were either rabidly pro or rabidly against involvement in Southeast Asia. Russia was the Soviet Union at the time was a continuing issue, but it was rather static at the time in the mid-60s. They didn't bother us much, and we didn't bother them on the surface, but under the surface they were involved pretty much all over the world. They were certainly in Eastern Europe, they were in Southeast Asia, they were in Africa. All of the Southeast Asian countries, the United States and the Soviet Union, signed a treaty, including the North Vietnamese. However, the North Vietnamese never honored it. The South Vietnamese honored it, the Americans honored it, and I was, several years later, in 1969, I was still fighting that war in the tri-border area of Laos, Cambodia, and Vietnam, because the North Vietnamese were using Laos and Cambodia to infiltrate South Vietnam. Nobody ever acknowledged at the time, one way or the other, that your service in Vietnam, the fact that I was shot in Vietnam, didn't affect people.
My name is Lieutenant Colonel Matthew Ritchie. I enlisted in the Virginia Army National Guard in 1988, which was at the time, we didn't know it, but it was towards the end of the Cold War. So the decision making that I had was steeped in the realities of the Cold War. Well, I decided to enlist as part of ROTC in order to pursue an eventual Army commission to serve in the U.S. Army as part of NATO to defend the United States and our European allies against Soviet aggression. Like I said, we did not know at the time that the late 80s were the end of the Cold War. At the time, it was apparent to us that this would go on for another generation. So all of that thinking was logical at the time, given the threats that we faced. Well, like I said, I made a set of decisions based on the reality at the time, which, as soon as I was in, changed dramatically. So that was a big institutional change for us. We had prepared for 40 years to do something, and then that something was no longer relevant. So that meant in the 90s, it was the U.S. military was searching for some level of relevance.
Are you proud of what you did while you were in Yugoslavia? Are you proud that you helped defend the United States against the Soviet Union?
Yes, and there's several reasons. One is again, we did not know at the time that the Cold War was fixing to end. Second of all, I could say that I was part of the force, the force of deterrence, and that if you notice the captain of the wrestling team never gets picked on by bullies, does he? Because he is well prepared to defend himself, and so a nation that is well prepared tends not to get bullied or tends not to get threatened. And so I can be glad to have been a part of that deterrent force that kept peace during the Cold War, as well as the force later that enforced peace under difficult circumstances.
Do you think that the Soviets being in Afghanistan in the 80s contributed to why we are there currently?
Yes, not in a direct fashion as a direct response, but what the Soviets stirred up in the 80s then led to other situations and other dominoes falling, which then led to the situation that gave us 9/11. It was not the Soviets were not doing that deliberately. But they were. We can see in retrospect some direct causes. People don't realize that Afghanistan in the 1970s was for the most part a much different place. It was certainly largely still rural and still largely poor, but was not necessarily a particularly dangerous place. And certainly not a hotbed of danger to its neighbors or to other parts of the world. What the dangers we faced in the Cold War were legitimately existential. You had several nations with nuclear firepower able to incinerate the entire planet several times over. So it's certainly the highest danger you could face. Now, how likely was it that was actually going to happen? Well, pretty unlikely. Whereas now you have far lower dangers of, say, regional conflicts or proxy conflicts, but far higher likelihood. So it's a different calculus and a different set of dangers that we face.
Now the Soviets themselves may, in a limited way, be coming to understand the importance of freedom. We hear much from Moscow about a new policy of reform and openness. Some political prisoners have been released. Certain foreign news broadcasts are no longer being jammed. Some economic enterprises have been permitted to operate with greater freedom from state control. Are these the beginnings of profound changes in the Soviet state? Or are they token gestures intended to raise false hopes in the West or to strengthen the Soviet system without changing it? We welcome change and openness, for we believe that freedom and security go together, that the advance of human liberty can only strengthen the cause of world peace. There is one sign the Soviets can make that would be unmistakable, that would advance dramatically the cause of freedom and peace. General Secretary Gorbachev, if you seek peace, if you seek prosperity for the Soviet Union and Eastern Europe, if you seek liberalization, come here to this gate. Mr. Gorbachev, open this gate. Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.